Hello off-road warriors, it's the AWAS. Whether you ride dual sport or adventure motorcycles, if you ride off-road, you will drop your bike, and sometimes even worse. I lost count how many times I dropped my adventure and dual sport motorcycles on the dirt, but this crash in the beginning of the video is one of the worst crashes so far, and the first time I crashed into an obstacle, in this case a tree. Of all the drops I've had, there are 2 that stand out the most on my adventure bike, and now 3 on my dual sport. But thankfully no lasting injuries so far, except for bruised body parts thanks to the full body gear I wear all the time. The lasting effect of these type of crashes can be mental, where in this case, I wanted to run the same trail again, but this time without fear. Emotions play a key role in our decision-making process in everything we do, including riding motorcycles. This video is an explanation and breakdown of how fear can lead to bad decision-making, bad form, and ultimately accidents. I also share how facing fear can help you overcome any lasting mental or emotional hurdles that remain as a result of the drop or light crash. It is said, in a sense, that we have 2 brains, the emotional brain and the thinking brain, which when combined and is in balance helps us navigate through situations effectively. When one takes over the other, then we lose the ability to utilize our full brain, sometimes leading to bad outcomes. So for example, how many times did you overthink something and not take action due to indecisiveness? Or how many times did your emotional response take over where you regretted how you acted in a situation or how you responded? The emotional part of the brain is controlled through the amygdala, which is one of the oldest parts of our brain. When emotion takes over and drives our behavior and responses, it's often referred to as the amygdala hijack. The frontal lobe of the brain controls planning and coordination of movement. That part's called the motor cortex, where the anterior or frontal portion of the frontal lobe is called the prefrontal cortex. This is the area that's responsible for higher level cognitive functioning. This is the most advanced part of our brain that doesn't fully develop until we're in our young adulthood, around our mid-20s. So did you ever make a bad decision in your teens or early 20s where you did not fully think out the consequences? Well, the underdeveloped prefrontal cortex may have played a role in it. If you ever heard, "What were you thinking?" then there's another sign that you weren't using your prefrontal cortex, although I still hear that in my adult age. So why am I talking about all this in a dual sport motorcycle video? Trust me, there's a lesson and a level of self-awareness here that can help avoid obliteration while riding. And by the way, if you can finish the quote that I started in this video and reference the book that it came from, I'll make sure to do a shout out for you in my next video. Also, please leave comments if you've experienced a crash and share how you got over it as well. The unpredictability of terrain and obstacles requires all of our focus in keeping one's fear at bay in order for us to be at our best while riding our motorcycles. Fear is truly the mind killer and causes us to freeze, tighten up, and make bad decisions. Fear is a survival emotion meant to protect us from danger, leading to physiological responses that inhibits our ability to be a focused rider. So here's how it works. Fear causes the adrenal glands to secrete adrenaline and cortisol, which are both steroid hormones. These hormones help us respond to survival situations via the fight or flight response that I'm sure you've all heard of. These hormones cause the heart rate to go up and redirects blood flow from the brain to the main muscles of the body to fuel the fight or flight response. What follows is disablement of the higher cortex, which affects our decision-making process. When this happens, all your training could go down the drain, and your responses are driven by emotions of fear and panic. Here's how I break down the critical mistakes I made that led to my crash and how fear played a role in it. So operationally, my rear brake pedal was positioned too low, making it difficult to brake while standing. Once my bike started sliding and picking up speed down the hill, I started to panic a little, which led to fear. I then tightened up and made bad decisions, including tapping my front brake and looking at the obstacle I wanted to avoid, both of which caused me to hit the tree. Basic beginner mistakes, but due to lack of using my brain, or in this case, my prefrontal cortex. After the crash, I could feel the adrenaline in my body, which took some time for me to settle. For 2 weeks, I thought of the critical mistakes I made that were reinforced by the 360-degree camera that was mounted on my handlebars. After Jeff's help straightening my forks and making the proper adjustments to my brake pedal and handlebars for better standing body position, I was ready to tackle the trail again. This time, focused and with proper form. So during my second and third rounds through the trails, I tried to keep my emotions in check, specifically not letting fear take over. Now, you can't always control the fear response because it is meant to protect us from danger or in survival situations, which hopefully most of the time you're not facing that while on your motorcycle. In my case, I rode pretty slow and within my means so I can focus on my technique and really focus on the terrain around me and making the proper decisions, correct eye position, correct body position, so on and so forth. This allowed me to, again, focus on what's happening around me and what my body is doing in response to it. So I felt more relaxed, but not fully relaxed. It was a level of excitement too at times while climbing hills that really helps heighten your sense of what's happening around you, but again, keeping fear at bay. So it is something we can manage, but not always control. One of the reasons why these type of accidents have a long-lasting effect is also physiological. When adrenaline and cortisol hormones kick in, they also enable a part of our brain to memorize the experience that led to the fear. This is meant to protect us in the future from experiencing the same event again. This is why we tend to relive the crash in our minds in slow motion weeks and months after the crash. My goal was to override this fear within a few weeks of the accident, and it worked. So how do you overcome fear or an amygdala hijack while riding? The best way is through training and relying on your training, especially during times of stress. Train with proper form, wear your protective gear, and focus your mental and emotional energy on implementing the proper form, knowing you have prepared for this moment.